The military-industrial complex was made famous by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in his 1961 farewell address. Eisenhower warned, "The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." Eisenhower or his speechwriters did not coin the phrase, but its previous usage referred to physical connections between the industrial and military production, not political relationships. Eisenhower referred to a novel set of challenges facing the American policy in the Cold War, while other definitions refer to more general relationships between the military and industry. One use of the term refers to any set of relationships between military policy and industrial production. For example, scholars have examined the military-industrial complex in the former Soviet Union and Latin American countries. Their concern is usually with the reciprocal influence of the military and industry on each other's policies, rather than the hijacking of foreign policy by a creative interest in maintaining military-related production. A second meaning focuses on the historical relationship between sections of industry and the military in the United States. A central concern in this literature is profiteering by industry, especially during wartime production. In this use of the word, specific armed services are more interested in ensuring friendly and stable relations with suppliers than in obtaining fair prices. The term is also used to refer to the Merchants of Death debates in the 1930s over the alleged conspiracy of arms manufacturers and bankers for the U.S. intervention of the World War I. In these cases, there is no complex of military industry at work. Instead, industry employs bribery and propaganda to increase profits and alter government policy. Although potentially dangerous, Eisenhower considered the military-industrial complex necessary to deter Soviet Union from becoming more aggressive. With the United States possessing a powerful peacetime military, war would be too risky a means to victory for communism. Eisenhower never called for the military-industrial complex to be eliminated. He urged citizens to be vigilant so that its power would not be abused.
How it is used. The military-industrial complex is used in multiple ways: counterterrorism, homeland security, intelligence, and profit. So private contractors are hired by the government and are most often profiting from conflict and war. Some of the companies that have been profiting are Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and BAE Systems. Lockheed Martin is responsible for making aircrafts, missiles, unmanned systems, and radar systems. In 2011, their arms sales made up 78% of their sales. For Boeing, they make strategic missile systems, laser and electro-optical systems, and global positioning systems. They're the second largest government contractor with $21.5 billion worth of goods, and they also have contracts with NASA. For the BAE Systems, they create aircrafts, artillery, electronics, vehicles, missiles, and ships. They also have made the LROD bar armor system and simulation training for military pilots. In 2011, their arms sales made up 95% of their total sales. So the United States has one of the largest military budgets in the world, and these companies are benefiting from the United States' growth in military spending. However, these companies are still looking overseas to increase their arms sales. Some of the reasons include that the sales in the United States have been decreasing. The United States' involvement in foreign conflicts are going down. And some of the areas that these companies are looking to create business with is Latin America, Middle East, and parts of Asia.
How's it going? So we're going to discuss the motives behind the use of the term military-industrial complex. And it's kind of a tricky one to look at initially. It was first coined by President Eisenhower in his farewell address, leaving the presidency in 1961 to be succeeded by JFK. And he used the term to highlight the burgeoning idea of we're in a country that's becoming more and more powerful based off of our military strength, and he wanted to warn the public to try to find a balance between putting all of our effort and money into the defense industry, the contracts defense of our nation, with programs and different avenues that would not only just increase our capacity for war, but increase our capacity for the betterment of humankind. We do get a lot of things out of the military that are for the betterment of the U.S. I mean, think about GPS on your phone. A lot of different medical advancements and technological advancements come from military research, so it's not all bad. It's not we're just spending money on bombs and aircraft and weapons to kill, where there is some that come out of it that could be kind of argued towards Eisenhower, that we do get some out of it, but he was really about wanting to find the balance. And it's an interesting time when he first gave the speech, because it was in the beginnings of throes of the Cold War, and you can almost say first Cold War nowadays. So he was a tactician. He's a general, a highly decorated general in World War II, and he commanded a lot in Korea as well. So he knew what he was doing. He knew he had to make these statements, but he also knew that we were about to get into a type of conflict that we'd never seen before as a country, and we needed to build he knew that we were going to be building in terms of our defense industry, and he was trying to seek to make a balance, try to find a balance, and at least put it on the minds of the American people. The unintended consequence, I would say, of this term military-industrial complex, and maybe Eisenhower's complicit in this, maybe he knew, but those that picked it up and run with this term, they are complicit in its growth, and it has now reached a point to where it strikes the idea in a lot of people that it's too big. It's such military-industrial complex is such a complex and large idea that there's nothing the individual can do against it. There's nothing that small grassroots organizations can do against it to stop it, because it is so large. And that comes from not only defense contractors who we've discussed, who profit from the growth of the military-industrial complex, using it in terms to kind of lighten it, and always, if they're using the term military-industrial complex, it followed by some sort of need for defense, some sort of need for the safety of the country. It's easy to do things and to be able to build bombs when people are scared, and you're going to make a lot of money off of it when there's a fear of danger. But it's not just these contractors that are complicit in its growth and its expansion. It's like a snowball effect. It's gotten so big and so crazily huge since Eisenhower discussed it, that we're looking at the protesters and anyone who is against war, against insane military spending like we have. If you look at it, one of the sources we posted on our account shows that we spend in 2015, I believe was the latest full disclosure of military spending. We spent $596 billion on the defense industry. That was more if not equal than the next 8 highest spending nations behind us, and that includes China, Russia, the UK, France, And I don't have the other ones off the top of my head, but we spend as much on our single country as the next highest 8 countries spend combined. So these countries are the next 8 in order, and we spend more than they all do combined. That's military industrial complex at work. That shows you that we have put so much emphasis onto defense, onto the protection of our country. You could say, how do these countries that are sometimes larger than us defend their country with less money? It's because the military industrial complex is pushed so far that we think we need this stuff. We can't stop it. We can't check it. And especially in the last 15 years, 16 years since 9/11, it's seen an exponential increase as well. And a good highlight of this increase in spending and use of the term military industrial complex, what comes from Susan Eisenhower, President Eisenhower's granddaughter, who in 2011 came out with a response and her feelings towards the speech that her grandfather had given 50 years prior. And she highlights how the fact that since 2011, since 2001, September 11th, this is written in 2011, in less than 10 years, our military and security expenditures have increased by 119%. Even after subtracting the costs of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the budget has grown by 68% since 2001. So the budgets have grown, and this is in the small 10-year span when we're looking at 60, 70 years since Eisenhower made the speech. It's grown 68% since 2001. In 2010, the United States projected to spend at least $700 billion on defense and security in the most real terms that's the most we've spent since any of the years since World War II, which is it was the big conflict that really set the standard for the U.S. in terms of a world power. So you can see that Eisenhower's daughter, she goes on and she kind of harkens back to the original ideals that Eisenhower put forth, that we need to find a balance. So you can say in terms against it, she would be considered in the pro or the kind of the anti-crazy amount of spending camp. Not necessarily, a hippie on the sign with some signs and peace symbols and everything like that, but she definitely followed it to the true letter of the T of just the words that Eisenhower were speaking, the warning, trying to find the balance. But even her use in this and her highlighting of the amount that we're spending is complicit into the snowball effect of you're showing people how much we're spending, how large it's gotten, and then highlighting back to a time where our country was vulnerable due to an attack. This is just going to keep building and building. This is a motive used to keep building the military industrial complex, because people are going to see this and say, hey, I remember 2011 or 2001 in September 11th. It was a terrible, absolutely horrific tragedy. But I also am glad that we've killed Osama bin Laden. We've gotten Saddam Hussein. These are the things that people are thinking. I like feeling safe. I don't like feeling like I did on that day. So maybe it's not that bad. And if it's already grown by, we're spending $700 billion, how am I going to stop that if I tried? So even on a subconscious level, the people that are protesting and the people are putting it out and using this term military complex, the motive behind it is whether they think they're doing something one way, the motive behind it is it's snowballing, it's building. We're going to keep moving towards this state of insane and immeasurable amounts of money spent on the defense industry. If we look at countries like North Korea, that's the absolute end of the line of what Eisenhower's warning, trying to use this for, of a country that spends entirely on the military, entirely on defense industries, while the rest suffer. So we want to keep trying to build towards a balance. But when people are using this thing, it's helping snowball and build this idea of military industrial complex to get to that point. So I have faith in the United States and the citizens that we can try to strike a balance. But that's the ultimate goal that I think Eisenhower was looking to end from. defense contractors would almost love that because they're making all the money. But that's kind of what we're looking to fight against. And it's harder when people who are against that and don't want that and want to strike the balance are using this term. It's just building due to recent terrorist attacks, due to safety concerns. People are looking at the military like, well, yeah, we can have cuts, but there's nothing I can do to stop, the eventual progression. And if you look at the bills that Trump just signed, it's increasing military spending. It's increasing the budget for the defense contractors, which they're happily eating up. I have personally worked for a defense contractor, and it's even at a very low level. It's clear that war is good business. When people are scared, they make money because they're building the protection to help people. So it's an interesting concept, and it's really interesting if you look at the motives behind it. And if we look at like we discussed, who's using these terms, the motives behind the terms, one that sticks out who used the term military industrial complex and tried to lighten it and soften the edges of military industrial complex was Norm Augustine, who in the 90s was the CEO and the head of Lockheed Martin, which is they build missile systems, they build drone bombers, they build aircraft, and they're one of the premier military and defense contractors. And Norm Augustine was a very public person. He's highlighted in the book Prophets of War, Lockheed Martin and the King of Military Industrial Complex. Norm Augustine was, I think I would liken him to Tony Stark, if anyone's familiar with the movie Iron Man. If you watch the first one with Robert Downey Jr. back when it got cool and got all these cool reboots of superheroes before they kind of beat us over the head with them. Very personable, very flashy. In the book, they liken him to the Bill Gates, or kind of the rock star of this world, the military of defense contractors. He was very public, seen a lot with President Clinton at the time, and he made it almost cool. He made defense spending and defense contractors almost cool, and that's such a motive that we can see behind it. Is his end game is to make more money, and how he makes more money is selling more bombs, selling more weapons, selling more planes, and by being out there and softening the edges of the harshness of the military industrial complex, it's one way of these motives of getting people to just kind of go along with it. Oh, well, this guy that I saw popping champagne at so-and-so's party, or, he'll make charitable donations, and people, wow, that's a good guy. If that's the face I see behind him is, 1,500 tons of munitions that he's trying to peddle, I'm going to look at the guy's face. He's a rock star. I'm in the charisma that he's spending and that he's putting out there. It's definitely really cool. It's cool as a subject term, but it's interesting to see people, how they can fall for that, and how the motive behind his public persona, his use of the term, in a lighter sense, helped build where we're at today. We're at an unprecedented level for our country of military spending. We're not at North Korea levels yet. Thankfully, we still have public, programs, and we can still do a lot of things that they can't do, unfortunately. But if people like him continued doing the way that they present the military industrial complex, present defense contractors as a whole, it's, we could be swindled into a society like North Korea, because we're just so into, they're not bad until they're so large that all we're spending is military and defense. So it's interesting to see that direct approach, because we've seen the behind the scenes approach where they're using the term to make it seem like it's bigger than you can stop. We've seen the backfiring of protesters using it, because it, again, gets people to believe that the military industrial complex is just too big to fail. That's another fun one from the banking industry. but then this blatant in your face, I'm a death dealer, but it's cool, and you're gonna like me, and we're gonna be okay with it, that we saw from Norm Augustine in the '90s. It's extremely interesting to see these motives used in an effort to continue the growth of the defense contractors and the defense industry, and put more money in the pockets of those defense contractors. It's that's what it boils down to. We can secure our country for a lot less than we're spending, but we're spending an inordinate amount of money because we think the military industrial complex is too big to stop at this point. Maybe on a subconscious level, maybe you're vocal against it, but on a subconscious level, the motives behind who's been using the term and how it's being used have pushed that upon us. And some of us think, hey, it's pretty cool. We got dudes like Norm Augustine, or AKA Tony Stark. It's not that bad. So that's where we're at because of the motives behind it. And it's interesting to watch, and it's interesting to really understand that it's not too big to stop if, you lobby congressmen and you elect people that you believe will find a balance. It's not about stopping military spending. It's not about, cutting back and cutting jobs from the military. It's about finding the balance. That's what the initial idea behind Eisenhower's words were. That's what his motives were. At least that's what we can assume. And how it's evolved since then it's a dark but very interesting thing to look at. So please keep that in mind as we move forward, and vote for your representatives accordingly. Thanks.